Coming in at number 10 is Ted Sarandos, CEO of the streaming giant Netflix. Oh, the CEO of Netflix is a money-hungry monster who doesn't want to pay writers or actors even though they are his bottom line? What a surprise. The so-called creative head of the Netflix team has been racking up millions of dollars while the writers and actors for the shows that made those millions can barely afford to buy food or keep a roof over their head without working a minimum wage job on the side. Kimiko Glenn, who starred in Orange is the New Black, has spoken out about the fact that her naked body will continue to exist on Netflix but will only make $27 in residuals. People have been speculating that Netflix has been inflating viewership numbers since the beginning so that stock prices stay high. But they obviously didn't think ahead because these numbers have done more than just bring up the stocks, but also make actors think they are entitled to a bigger residual check. If Netflix wants to make it seem like their shows are huge with arbitrary ratings, then they should stick to the script and pay their actors, because these 81-cent residual checks made to actors like Mandy Moore, who took a starring role in This Is Us, are kind of letting Netflix tell on themselves that this speculation may have some weight to it. At number 9 is Matt Damon. In a tweet by the publication Deadline, which was quickly fact-checked and disputed, claimed that Matt Damon was against the strike. During an interview with the Oppenheimer premiere, Damon apparently said that Hollywood labor strikes will be brutal for actors and his own production company. As well, he said that the strike has shut down one of his own company's films. This tweet has since been deleted since the phrase was exposed to be cherry-picked from a longer interview where Damon also said, "We gotta hold strong until we get a deal that's fair." Twitter users have been buzzing about this tweet. One user, Samosas and Popcorn, wrote, "Just an FYI that Deadline Hollywood is probably literally so deep in studios' pockets that they're omitting context to make the WGA and SAG strikes look like they're being done in bad faith. They're scumbags for trying to build a negative narrative against struggling creatives." At number 8 is Kenneth Branagh. Deadline didn't stop with Damon. Alongside the former, decided to put out a tweet just as incorrect and cherry-picked about an interview with Kenneth, claiming that he said, "I hope as everyone does that it resolves itself quickly," making it seem like this was in context of just wanting to get it over with. Deadline neglected to include that he was in solidarity with the SAG-AFTRA strike. Twitter users weren't relaxed about this one either, with Zoe Rose Bryant writing, "Disgusted by Deadline's misrepresentation of actors' opinions on the SAG strike, continuing to cherry-pick quotes that show skepticism instead of support." Coming in at number 7 is Jenna Ortega. After it was revealed that she will continue to work on the film Death of a Unicorn despite the strike, people began to assume that Jenna was against it, as this would mean that she would be deliberately going against the rules set out by the union for what the strike entailed. However, just because it's a movie does not mean that it's tied to what the actors and writers are striking against. In fact, it is quite the opposite. The strike is against the AMPTP and welcomes the work of indie filmmakers. SAG-AFTRA has granted approval to 39 independent productions to shoot during the strike, and after confirming that they're not tied to the AMPTP companies, including Death of a Unicorn. Jenna also posted an Instagram story reposting a New York Times article entitled "Actors Join Writers' Strike, Bringing Hollywood to a Standstill," so it seems like the strikes got Jenna's obvious support. Also, it would make no sense that the star of Wednesday, one of Netflix's top shows, would be against having her perpetual use of likeness compensated. At number 6 is Paul Rudd. Rudd is also set to act in the film Death of a Unicorn, leading people to believe the same thing about him that they did about Ortega, believing that he was deliberately going against union strike rules. However, this was not the case. First of all, because of the formerly mentioned fact that the film is part of 39 independent productions that received approval from the unions to continue to shoot. In fact, being a part of the project is in support of the strike because it supports smaller creators instead of doing the alternative, only giving your craft to big name studios. Coming in at number 5 is Bob Iger. The chief executive officer of Disney is unsurprisingly against the strike that is making it harder to pad his bottom line, and by harder I mean that in no way because he will continue to make more money than he can spend for the rest of his life. Although he takes in a staggering $75,000 a day on the backs of workers who, as I've said before, can't afford to feed themselves, he still can't seem to figure out why people are causing a scene. During an appearance on CNBC, the Disney CEO said that the ongoing WGA strike and imminent decision for the SAG-AFTRA to join them do not have realistic expectations, adding that it's very disturbing. His full quote went, "We've talked about the disruptive forces on this business and all the challenges we're facing. The recovery from COVID, which is ongoing, it's not completely back. This is the worst time in the world to add to that disruption." Which is very odd for him to say considering that his bank account was probably the least affected from COVID, and the background actors that are relying on the residual checks are one accident away from losing their apartment. Iger went on to say, "I understand any labor organization's desire to work on behalf of its members to get the compensation and be compensated fairly based on the value that they deliver. We managed as an industry to negotiate a very good deal with the Directors Guild that reflects the value that the directors contribute to this great business. We wanted to do the same thing with the writers, and we'd like to do the same thing with actors. There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic, and they are adding to the set of challenges that this business is already facing that is, quite frankly, very disruptive." Yeah, Bob, I bet it's absurdly disruptive for your employees to ask for fair pay and lunch breaks. I bet it's just so incredibly irritating to have your exploitation called out and no longer seen as the norm. Wouldn't it just be so awful to make a few less million a day? Are we supposed to feel bad for you? At number 4 is David Zaslav, the Warner Brothers Discovery CEO. What a shock. Another CEO on the list about people who are against a strike from workers who want better work environments. Zaslav felt the effect of the strike while delivering a commencement speech at Boston University, his alma mater, in May. May. His speech, which included the quote from General Electric CEO Jack Welch told him, "If you want to be successful, you're going to have to figure out how to get along with everyone, and that includes difficult people," which is a complete slap in the face to what is going on right now, and rightfully received boos from spectating students in between chants of "pay your writers." 10 days later, the university's president published an op-ed in the school's newspaper chastising the students for their behavior and apologizing to Zaslav, even though the treatment he got was absolutely fair. In a statement after the speech, Zaslav said, "I am immensely supportive of writers and hope the strike is resolved soon, even though he is one of the figureheads in charge of doing such a thing." During an appearance on CNBC earlier this month, in which he discussed the company's $50 million profit, Zaslav said the compensation disputes stem from ongoing changes in the industry. He said, quote, "The industry is in the middle of some significant disruption and people are changing the way they consume content, so it's very difficult to figure out how does that work, what's the right value for it. So I guess if you can't figure out what the value of the work is, you just don't have to pay them at all." Yeah. For sure. At number 3 is Bob Bakish. Paramount Global CEO Bob Bakish addressed the writer's strike during Paramount's earnings call, stating that the writers are an essential part of the creative content and we hope we can come to a resolution that works for everyone fairly quickly. However, he added, "It's also fair to say that there's a really big gap. Obviously, we've been planning for this. We do have many levers to pull and that'll allow us to manage through the strike, even if it's for an extended duration," which aren't words someone would say if they were expecting to stop mistreating the employees. Bakish also said, "In terms of those levers, we have a lot, so to speak, content in the can. So, with the exception of things like late night, consumers really won't notice anything for a while. Add that to a broad range of reality and unscripted shows where we're definitely a leader, as well as sports that's not affected. So we can do more in those areas if necessary." So yeah, great. We can just keep pumping out that garbage television slop, because everyone's brains have already been rotted enough that they won't even notice that there's no soul behind anything they're consuming anymore. Who needs a story or plotline or well-acted character when we have Big Brother and Teen Mom, which, may I add, both have teams of writers who are also severely underpaid. It is extremely unnerving to see a CEO's move during a strike be, "Oh, don't worry about it, we still have all that trash in the vault that we can feed the people," instead of doing anything that might help the current situation and give people their livelihoods back. Our runner-up goes to the unnamed studio executives that Deadline mentioned in their article entitled "Hollywood Studios WGA Strike Endgame is to let writers go broke before resuming talks in fall," which explains exactly what they may have said. Since the writers' strike began in May, every production company in the AMPTP, including the ones mentioned in this list, have become determined to break the WGA, as one unnamed studio exec blatantly put it. To do so, the studios and the AMPTP believe that by October, most writers will be running out of money after 5 months on the picket lines and no work. That same exec said, "The endgame is to allow things to drag on until union members start losing their apartments and losing their houses." A studio executive told Deadline one insider called it "cruel but necessary evil." "It is so wonderful to see the bosses care so much about their employees enough to not listen to their concerns and instead hope they go unhoused. This is so full of humanity." Our number 1 spot goes to Chad Nelson and Greg Brockman. The CEOs of OpenAI have made a full film with AI without the direct use of creatives or actors. This coming out amidst the controversy of actors non-consensually having their likenesses recorded, paid for one day and utilized for the rest of time, so it goes without saying that this AI work does not leave me with a great taste in my mouth. Everything is just about making content as fast as possible for as cheap as possible, which is obviously how you produce stuff that is meaningful and will hold up for the test of time, not just taking up space on servers and inevitably adding to the global warming crisis we're currently under. No! How could that happen? Jumping right in with our first story, Selena Gomez may have broken the SAG-AFTRA strike rules. In July of this year, the American Actors Union SAG-AFTRA went on strike over an ongoing labor dispute with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, which coincided with the Writers Guild of America's strike as part of broader Hollywood labor disputes. These strikes have brought to light many incredibly poor working conditions many actors, writers, and other creatives have been made to withstand, with complaints far broader than just unfair pay and lack of residual payments, but also unethical working conditions and the fight for safeguards against unauthorized use of actors' likenesses through artificial intelligence. Actors in the USA and around the world have stopped promoting their work, both in interviews and on social media, in protest. However, some just can't help themselves when it comes to self-promo. Selena Gomez, after seemingly doing a ton of promotional work to turn herself back into a Hollywood it girl, has hit a roadblock on that comeback tour. In 2021, Gomez was starring in the brand new Hulu original show Only Murders in the Building, and this job has obviously been a positive force in her life, so much so that she's decided to share how much she's been missing working on the production in the midst of the SAG-AFTRA strike. In a now deleted Instagram reel, Selena shared a behind-the-scenes video from when the cast was on set together, featuring Selena rehearsing with her Only Murders in the Building castmates, most notably being that of Meryl Streep. Selena captioned the post, quote, "Missing and wanting at Only Murders Hulu." The post was live for just over 15 hours and went on to receive over 1 million likes, but those likes may be less because they liked the post and more out of shock. The video also racked up plenty of comments about how tone-deaf Selena Gomez seemed posting something like this while the rest of her industry is in the middle of striking for their rights before she was able to take the video down. Variety magazine decided to speak out on the issue of Selena posting this video, and according to them, it's unclear whether the actress had actually broken the SAG-AFTRA strike requirements and rules. In this case, the rule used against her actions would include the clause of restraining members of the union from promoting their work via the use of press interviews or social media posts while the strike persists. In this particular case, Selena did not technically tell her followers to watch Only Murders, and she didn't speak in the video. The only amount of promotion she did for the production was a simple tag of the official Only Murders account in the caption. Her deletion of the post is proof enough that she probably did not mean any harm by posting it. However, that may also just be a ploy to decrease the amount of hate she's been receiving, which seems especially possible since Selena hasn't yet spoken out about the incident or in support of the strike at all yet. The SAG-AFTRA strike is only one example of an industry pushing back against the poor working conditions workers are subjected to. The reason it's become so popular is because it's in Hollywood. Currently, workers are striking and voicing their worries about their employment across the world in almost every field. UPS drivers, rail workers, air travel employees, and teachers, just to name a few. It's fair to assume that work often isn't a great experience for anyone except the CEOs. Our second story pertains to Miley Cyrus's brother Trace and what he thinks about sex workers. The lead guitarist and vocalist from the punk band Metro Station apparently hates it when women shake it, just as his most well-known song asks them to do, going on to claim that people working on OnlyFans are, quote, killing their chance of ending up with a good guy. I don't know what Trace is really saying here. Is he implying that he, someone who would judge a person's employment, is a good guy? It's incredibly bold of him to make comments on what someone does for money, since I'm positive Trace has never had to hold a serious job, seeing as he's the Prince Harry of the Cyrus family. He could just sit back, collect his allowance, and engage in his little vanity projects, being the least famous sibling with the responsibilities of a home alone 11-year-old, just has to keep himself alive. Trace Cyrus decided to spew his anti-OnlyFans rant that spanned multiple paragraphs on Wednesday through his Instagram story, featuring such claims like men with morals would never settle down with a woman who makes money on the site, and that OnlyFans models will often call guys insecure just because they have what he calls standards. What he means to say here is judgment. He also says that women post to OnlyFans in order to widen their dating options and get attention from men. That last part is true, but that's just the business of it. The bizarre rambling rant ended with Trace accusing men who pay for OnlyFans content desperate losers. Not a great look to call people engaging in one of the only ethical ways to consume sex work losers, but I don't think Trace really thinks too highly of women anyway. Trace even went so far to bring in his own personal perspective into it, saying that he sees a lot of OnlyFans creators' value as strictly for sexual purposes and not being able to envision them as future wives, mothers, or loyal partners, which is horrendously misogynistic. He wrapped up the controversial post by writing that he finds this independent mindset of not needing a man to be an extremely toxic road to a very lonely future, ending the post with the claim that having a good man and a family will bring you more happiness in old age than OnlyFans ever could. I'm not sure if that's true. This rant obviously did not go the way Trace planned, or at least I think it didn't, unless he planned to get viciously attacked, but I'm not sure what else you would expect after posting something like this. Your one-hit wonder isn't coming to save you, Trace. Many people who saw the story called the guitarist humiliating, nonsensical, and ridiculous. Teen Mom alum, current OnlyFans model Farrah Abraham even called out the 2013 YouTube boy lookalike, sharing a screenshot of the rant via her Instagram story on Wednesday, and lamented about the double standards within the industry, writing, "If men can have OnlyFans accounts while being married with a family, so can women. Balance and brand is real, forget limited insecure mindsets." Trace responded to the post fairly quickly, sarcastically saying that he'd been, quote, defeated by the most intelligent women of this generation. Abraham ended the argument by writing back that, in the end, we're all adults and we can be on adult platforms. Honestly, why does Trace feel the need to give some blanket advice to every woman on the planet? Sometimes we can just mind our own business and not attempt to have control over everyone you feel you're entitled to have power over. By the way, I must reiterate, it's incredibly rich to hear this sort of judgment from a man who wrote Metro Station's 2007 hit Shake It, which is literally just about him convincing women to have sex with him. Alright, for our last story of the day, we are going to talk about how 50 Cent hit a fan on stage during a performance at Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles on Wednesday night as part of his Final Lap tour of 2023, and oh boy, for a final lap, he sure is ending with a bang. Similar to the scene Cardi B pulled a few weeks ago where, during a performance at a Las Vegas concert, she threw a microphone at a fan fan in retaliation for them throwing a drink at her. 50 Cent has also taken to throwing the microphone around, but with far less of a reasonable explanation. Apparently, 50 Cent was continually handed microphones that just did not work, and this clearly did not bode well for his emotions. The situation played out after 50 walked out on stage to join in on YG's singing, but as soon as 50 began, he realized the mic was once again not in working condition. He proceeded to turn to his side and absolutely pelt the broken microphone into the audience. The mic landed in a woman's forehead, striking her pretty hard and causing severe injuries. Sources that witnessed the scene told TMZ, who was first to release the story, that 50 Cent was obviously not targeting the woman. He didn't even realize she was standing where he had decided to pelt the mic. She just so happened to be standing in a bit of a splash zone. In fact, a source connected to 50 and his tour revealed that the woman wasn't even supposed to be standing there, as it was supposed to be a restricted area meant only for crew and security. Still, not okay for him to be throwing things there. In fact, that just makes it sound like he actually meant to hit someone who he was paying. This also hasn't been proven to be true, and the woman could have very well been in her designated space. Anyway, the woman, who's actually a Power 106 radio host named Brianna Monaghan, apparently did not take this situation lightly, obviously, as she shared with Instagram a picture of the gash she suffered from the mic thrown into her forehead, accompanied by several bloody towels wrapped around her neck. With injuries as serious as this, it's not at all surprising that Brianna decided to go through with legal action against 50 Cent. Now, in contrast to Cardi B, who just had charges dropped in regards to her microphone throwing situation, 50 is now a suspect in a criminal felony battery report after Monaghan filed a police report right after she was hit at the show on Wednesday night. Law enforcement sources told TMZ that they believed 50 did actually mean to throw the mic at his crew in the production area and instead ended up hitting the victim, who was an innocent fan. Brianna told the police in the report that apparently 50 looked directly at her before throwing the mic, so at least according to her, 50 did actually know full well that she was in the line of fire. 50 Cent and his representation have yet to speak out about the incident, and I doubt we'll hear anything from him or his camp, especially with the charges against him. You would think, with someone as experienced as 50 Cent is with performing up on stage and going through all the technical difficulties that come with that line of work, he'd be able to problem solve a little bit better than this, but I guess this is what happens when people get a little too comfortable.
Alright, so things are getting very heated with the writers' strike. Last-ditch talks between unions and streaming giants broke down just hours before a major deadline. They have simply been unable to reach an agreement over issues around pay residuals and the use of AI. Now, in the biggest development ever, tens of thousands of Hollywood actors are preparing to join the writers' strike. The Screen Actors Guild has decided to support the screenwriters on the picket lines. This is because they also have their own beef with the studios. The union, which represents around 160,000 actors and performers, is seeking a fairer split of streaming profits and a guarantee that AI will not be used to replace duties performed by actors. Many big names have already made it clear that they are willing to strike to support their colleagues. In June, a letter from several A-listers like Meryl Streep and Jennifer Lawrence urged the union not to settle for a mediocre deal. Even Margot Robbie gave her thoughts on the strike at the premiere of the Barbie movie. She said, "I'm obviously on board and part of the SAG, and I'm definitely in support of all unions, so I hope everyone reaches an agreement that they're happy with." And just yesterday, Hollywood unions representing directors and crews issued a statement of unwavering support and solidarity with the actors. So things have really escalated. Hollywood hasn't seen a double strike of actors and writers since 1960, and it's going to mean that almost all US film and TV productions will grind to a halt. The strike could also extend to the UK and other countries where members of the acting union are active on film sets. This joining of actors and writers would also prevent A-listers from promoting some of the year's biggest movies. This is why the London premiere of Oppenheimer was brought forward by 1 hour, so that stars like Robert Downey Jr. and Emily Blunt and Matt Damon can all walk the red carpet before any potential walkout happens. Writers have been striking now for several months, outside the studios of major streamers like Disney, Netflix, and Paramount. The Guild's president accused streaming companies of refusing to meaningfully engage, claiming that they are stonewalling the Guild. They said, "We are not confident that the employers have any intention of bargaining toward an agreement." Meanwhile, the group representing the studios said that it was disappointed by the collapse of negotiations. They released a statement saying, "This is the union's choice, not ours. In doing so, it has dismissed our offer of historic pay and residual increases, substantially higher caps on pension and health contributions, audition protections, shortened series option periods, a groundbreaking AI proposal that protects actors' digital likenesses, and more." While this sounds like a good deal, they still have not addressed the writers' main concerns. It's undeniable that they have suffered financially in the age of streaming, partly because shows are having shorter seasons. This transition cut their pay and forced them to work more for less money. According to the WGA, half of TV writers now work at minimum salary levels, compared with only 1/3 in 2013. 2019. The union said that they are fighting for writers' economic survival and the stability of their profession. While the budget for TV series has soared over the past decade, the pay for writers and producers has fallen. At the same time, the entertainment industry has paid exorbitant salaries to executives and reported billions in profits. The WGA calculated that industry profits have risen from $5 billion in 2000 to annual profits ranging from $28 billion to $30 billion from 2017 to 2021. And in 2021, 12 of the top media and entertainment executives received about $1 billion in total compensation. So it's really only the writers who are suffering. They just can't support themselves with writing alone, and they have reduced job opportunities from the shift in the industry. There's also another major issue at the bargaining table: AI. The WGA wants safeguards to prevent studios from using AI to generate new scripts. Writers also want to ensure that they are not asked to rewrite draft scripts created by AI, because this would undermine screenwriters and their work by impacting their compensation. The union is open to the use of technology so long as the writers maintain sole credit of the work. They're also contending with declining television ad revenue as traditional TV audiences shrink and advertisers go elsewhere. For their part, the studios released a statement saying, "Our goal continues to be to reach a fair and reasonable agreement. The AMPTP companies have approached these negotiations with the long-term health and stability of the industry as our priority. We are all partners in charting the future of our business together, and we are fully committed to reaching a mutually beneficial deal." But so far that hasn't happened, and the situation is getting more dire by the day.
Coming in at number 10 is George Clooney. The Ocean's 11 actor has been in the industry since the late 80s and was at one point almost a poster boy for what an actor was, so it would be surprising for him not to support a strike that would make his career path a viable option for others. The actor made a statement to the media outlet Deadline about the strike earlier this week in an article entitled "George Clooney Says the SAG Strike is an Inflection Point in Our Industry." More specifically, Clooney said, "Actors and writers in large numbers have lost their ability to make a living," adding, "This is an inflection point in our industry. For our industry to survive, that has to change. For actors, that journey starts now." The Deadline article goes on to update the status of the strike, saying, "SAG's leadership officially ratified the strike following failed AMPTP, the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, negotiations that were extended by 2 weeks but yielded little. The dispute is expected to rumble for some time. The writers' strike has so far been going on for nearly 3 months and shows no sign of stopping, and as long as things don't change for the better, the longer this strike will keep going strong." At number 9 is Glenn Powell. The Top Gun Maverick supporting actor replied to a tweet from Variety magazine that wrote, "You cannot change the business models as much as it has changed and not expect the contract to change too. What are we doing? So the jig is up, AMPTP. We stand tall," with a link to an article entitled "Watch Fran Drescher Blast Insulting AMPTP Behavior in a Fiery SAG-AFTRA Strike Speech. Shame on you." In her speech she added, "We are labor and we stand tall and demand respect and to be honored for our contributions. And we are being victimized by a very greedy entity." Glenn quote tweeted the post by saying, "For years I survived off of residuals while trying to make it as a working actor. This business continues to evolve and actors' livelihood should be protected every step of the way. I stand in solidarity with my fellow artists." As streaming services continue to roll out new shows, the concept of residuals, which used to be the bread and butter of an actor or writer's livelihood, has now become null and void. It is just absurd to me that you could star in a show, have that show watched by millions of people, thus attracting subscribers to the streaming site, and yet basically receive nothing for your work and continued use of likeness. At number 8 is Yvette Nicole Brown. The Drake and Josh actress, or more recently known for her work in Community and Actor Age, posted an update on Twitter about her current status in the strike with proof of work on the picket lines. She writes, "It's official at SAG-AFTRA has voted to strike. We will be joining the WGA, or Writers Guild of America, on the picket line starting tomorrow. We all got together last week to create our signs. I was on sticks. Without a splinter thanks to duct tape, think of your girl. Hashtag Union Strong." Alongside pictures of her work, making multiple signs that read SAG-AFTRA on strike. Coming in at number 7 is John Cusack. The Say Anything star made reference to his famous role in his reaction to the strike, saying on Twitter, "The greed is almost a legendary comic trope. Fun fact, when I was a youngin', I did a film with a boombox. Never expected to see any money, but the film became quite famous. So about 10 years ago, I looked again at the financial statements they were obligated to report, and to my shock, they claimed they had lost $44 million on the film. I thought, wow, I almost bankrupted Fox, but not really. The film cost about $13 million to make, and money spent to release was minimal at the time. 30 years in, that film lost millions every year. A neat accounting trick, don't you think? This basically means that the production company lied straight to John's face in order to not pay him well. Yeah, seems like something that happens plenty in this industry. It's a miracle this strike took so long to commence." In another tweet, John condemned the AMPTP's reported terms on the use of AI as it pertains to background actors. On Thursday, National Executive Director and Chief Negotiator Duncan Crabtree Ireland detailed in a press conference that the AMPTP reportedly wanted the right to scan the likeness of background background actors, pay them for one day of work, and own the rights to their image in perpetuity. To which John wrote, AI is a giant copyright and identity theft. It's a criminal enterprise, and in 10 years they'll all say, we had no idea this would happen when the scope and scale of the plunder was revealed. But of course, they always knew. This won't be the last time that AI is mentioned on this list, but I'd like to add here that I can't believe no one saw a massive strike coming as soon as AI hit the scene and seemingly only took over creative jobs. Stealing a person's likeness and not compensating for their continued usage seems to be all the rage in Hollywood, and I honestly find it incredibly disturbing. It is so obvious why there's pushback. Also, if there's ever a world where all content is mass-produced via AI, get ready to hate every television show and movie on the market. Why would I want to watch something made by a soulless robot is a question not enough people are asking. At number 6 is Padma Lakshmi, a writer on Top Chef and formerly on the creative team for Star Trek Enterprise, made her reaction debut on Twitter as well with an informative tweet that read, "As a member of both SAG-AFTRA and WGA East, I stand in solidarity with my fellow striking union members. We demand what is fair, adequate compensation, and creative protections. Streaming revolutionized our industry and has changed the game. As a vital part of the creative process, we want an equitable share of the profits our work has earned. Our industries are built on collaborative process. We want our contributions recognized fairly. Thousands of livelihoods depend on equitable contract that is long overdue." Honestly, every claim and desire that these union members are making are incredibly fair. Like, wanting your work to be fairly compensated for and have the correct people recognized for their contributions is what everybody deserves in any workplace. It doesn't come as a shock to me that one of the most exploitative industries is continuing to exploit people in any way it can. But I hope that everyone understands that the strike is just coming from a place of not wanting to be mistreated, which makes total sense. At number 5 is Octavia Spencer. The Moss star unsurprisingly also made a statement about the current strike, making an Instagram post with a picture of Teamsters, IATCE, Writers Guild, and DGA's joint statement of solidarity with SAG-AFTRA, meaning that almost every performance-based unit in America is currently on strike. Octavia captioned the statement by saying, "I stand with my fellow SAG-AFTRA members during the SAG strike alongside the WGA in their fight, and I support the many skilled unionized workers across all industries that deserve fair compensation. We cannot do it without each other." At number 4 is Mark Ruffalo. The 13 going on 30 star decided to make his statement to the strike not with his own words, but by quoting Lois Smith, a Tony Award-winning actress who made an appearance in Wes Anderson's The French Dispatch and Greta Gerwig's Lady Bird. Mark was right to let her do the talking because she eloquently put into words what needed to happen during the last strike is exactly what needs to happen in this one. She said, "I urge us to strike at the same time as the writers to change the awful inequity of money and power in film and television. I remember when we went on strike in 1960, the only time writers and actors struck at the same time. That strike got us film residual checks. A monumental change. This moment is important and unusual not to be missed. I do believe that this strike will have the power to change the current career paths of actors and writers, which at the current moment, those jobs seem to be on the basis of volunteership and feeling grateful that you even got a chance to have someone take a second look at you." At number 3 is Patton Oswalt. The comedian known for his recent work in BoJack Horseman quote tweeted a post by the account discussing film, who wrote, "The studio's AI proposal to SAG-AFTRA included scanning background actors' likenesses for 1 day's worth of pay and using their likeness forever in any form without any pay or consent. To add to this, many actors had no idea that this was even happening and thus did not consent to have it done. An incredibly scary and unnerving turn of events in Hollywood. Many actors have found that their random motion and facial captures that the studio did for seemingly no reason or for nefarious and unethical reasons, with the intention of making mass-produced AI films and television in the near future." Patton Oswalt responded to this the way most people would, saying, "Sweet Jesus, you bet we're on strike, #UnionStrong," which is really all he had to say. To reiterate, the AI threats in Hollywood right now are alone enough for people to be standing up for their rights and dignity. I hope it makes the people in charge scared enough to shelve this goddamn monstrosity and creative enemy of a technology. Our runner-up is Margot Robbie. The star of the highly anticipated Barbie movie helmed by Greta Gerwig has also decided to join the SAG-AFTRA movement. Sky News reported on her decision, writing on Twitter, "Whilst gracing the pink carpet, #Barbie star Margot Robbie enthusiastically said she supports the actors' strike and all the unions, and would be prepared to join the picket lines as well." She was joined by her co-star Ryan Gosling. Director Greta Gerwig also joined in and lent her support to the cause, as she is a member of the DGA, WGA, and SAG, and said, "I'm all in." Many stars have been witnessed leaving press junkets and red carpets going straight to the picket line, and it's not surprising why Margot Robbie will be joining the crew. Our number 1 spot goes to Daniel Radcliffe. The actor famously known for the Harry Potter series, but more recently for his work in the Roku original Weird Al Yankovic biopic, gave a statement to Vanity Fair magazine saying, "The strike is what we're all talking about at the moment. I'm one of the very, very lucky and rare actors that has a strong position to negotiate from when I work. This is not the experience of most people, and I do think that both actors and writers who are currently striking, nobody wants these things to happen, but I think they're incredibly necessary for the way the industry is going. Technology has changed so much about the industry in the last 10 years, it feels like it's absolutely time time. There will need to be a recalibration in order for everybody to work still to be able to attract great people to the industry, great writers and great actors. And also, along with all the AI stuff, which also feels very important right now, we are probably one of the first industries that's going to have a say in how this stuff affects us. It's going to be probably the first of many that will have some version of this conversation. I think it's very important that we take a stand on that now.